All right, this lesson we are introducing you or reviewing what bivariate data is. So when we talk about bivariate data, we're talking about data that has two variables. So the word bi means two, like bicycle has two wheels. Bivariate data has two variables in the data. Now, because there's two variables, there might be a relationship between the two variables. We call that correlation. Co meaning like together. And when there is a relationship, one of the variables will explain, and the other one will be responding. So we have names for the two variables. One is called explanatory variable, we'll call it EV, which explains the variations in the other variable, and the other variable is the RV, the response variable. So how do we determine which one's which? Well, it is mostly common sense, so you do need to think a little bit about. There is no formula to follow, but in most cases it is hopefully obvious to you. So looking at the first one, if we were to do an investigation between a number of children in a family and type of car that they drive. Now you need to think about, well, if you have four children, so that's 2 adults and 4 children, can you fit them in a very small car which fit 4 people? No, you cannot. So you would think that the number of children in the family explains what type of car they drive. Now, if you're unsure, think of it the other way. So think of it, well, I have a type of car. Let's say it fits 5. Does that mean I have to have 5 kids in the family? No, or 3 kids in the family. Not necessarily. You could have no kids and drive a car that fits 5 people. Whereas if you have many people in the family, you can't drive a small car. So sort of think of it both ways. Choose the way that makes more sense. I mean, you could argue it goes either way, but you'll know that one way is always better than the other. The next one looks at ice cream sales for each month of the year. So the month would explain the ice cream sales, so the month will be the EV. And that's because in the hotter month, like during summer, you'll have more ice cream sales. During winter, you'll have less. Next one looks at time taken for a student to get to school and what mode of transport they use. So as you could imagine, mode of transport will explain how long it takes. I don't know, if they're taking a bus, it might take longer than if they get driven. And last one, salary and years of study. So typically speaking, which is not always true, if you study more, you'll probably end up with a job that pays more. So university is the EV in this case. Now, you'll see this in an exam, something like this. This one throws you off a little bit because it has a scatterplot as well. But essentially, it has population and area, so how big the area is of a suburb and how much people that live in it. Now, this one's a little bit tricky, at least in my brain, I don't know about you, that it could really be either way. Could be, well, if you have a big area, you're more likely have to have more people. However, in reality, you can have a lot of people in a small area as well. So it's really hard to determine which one's the EV and which was the RV. That's what the question was about in this exam. Write down the response variable. However, which we'll learn later in this topic, that in a scatter plot, the EV always goes on the x-axis. And in this case, we're given the scatter plot and the area is on here. So we know then the RV has to be the population. So the answer is population. Now, we'll look at scatter plots more later in this topic, so don't worry too much about that at the moment. But main takeaway from this lesson is knowing the vocabulary and how to identify EV and RV.